Halo Combat Evolved has remained a mainstay in many gamers' personal collections for nearly 23 years now, and I wanted to share my personal views on the hit video game after I played it all the way through for the first time in nearly 15 years. We start this epic journey aboard the Pillar of Autumn and dive feet first into the franchise. They really didn't have to take out the tutorial for the beginning of this game. It kinda makes me sad that they cut this part out for the PC port of this game. After a short, helpless jog, you meet the infamous Chips Dubbo, who will follow you to the very end. I'm very glad 343 didn't cut any corners with the lesser known lore of this game. Maybe the Anniversary Edition isn't so terrible after all. After your light jog around your home ship that is currently being destroyed by the Covenant, you meet everyone's favorite captain, Jacob Keyes. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like Captain Keyes looks a little bit janky while you're playing through with the Anniversary graphics turned on. After a short chit-chat with your old friends, Captain Keyes tells you to get off the ship with Cortana and hand you a totally not loaded Magnum and tells you to piss off. As you shoot through countless numbers of Covenant, you somehow manage to find and get on board the final lifeboat before you're overrun by more enemies and are inevitably killed. After launching and entering the ring's atmosphere, you crash land near a cliff to find that all the Marines that were with you in the lifeboat are dead. Are you sure it was really necessary to stand up, Chief? I can imagine that he probably played ping pong off a few walls and killed everyone inside. We finally get a glimpse of Halo in all its glory. Now, if you play with the Anniversary graphics turned on, there are a few obvious differences. The original version was a lot blockier and had kind of like a Minecraft vibe to it, which a lot of purists prefer. I honestly think they could have left the graphics alone and it would have felt more nostalgic for us players from the Xbox days. But the remaster isn't all terrible either, albeit they could have made the lighting a little bit better. In the Anniversary Edition, it is also nearly impossible to evade the Covenant when you encounter them in the first canyon. Before, when we played on Xbox, it was a piece of cake. But now, you might as well just fight them off and save yourself the headache. As you continue to explore the ring, you find more lifeboats and more dead Marines, but you do eventually come across a few groups of survivors that are fighting off the Covenant in random areas around this section. Once you fight off the Covenant at the first spire, you finally get to do some real exploring using a Warthog that is conveniently dropped off by Echo 419. Now, not to rag on 343 for this, but the modern feel of the Warthog just feels, well, it just feels wrong. I feel like the OG Warthog was much faster and more agile than this version. After fighting off some more Covenant in the not naturally formed caves, you're able to rescue the rest of the Marines and move on to the next area to find Captain Keyes. Once you arrive in the next area, you are greeted with a Covenant battlecruiser where Captain Keyes is being held prisoner. You can conquer this mission in one of two ways. You can either be as stealthy as possible and try and take as many enemies as possible out with a melee attack, or just go in guns blazing. You can clearly see which route I decided to take. After clearing out all the Covenant that get dropped on your head, you can finally move towards the gravity lift where, unsurprisingly, more Covenant get dropped on your head. After you clear the last of the Covenant in this area, you finally get the reinforcements that you were asking for during the entirety of this mission, which, ironically, get killed off by the Cloak Police waiting for you aboard the Truth and Reconciliation. If you somehow manage to save a good portion of the Marines with you, you can actually have an easier time than I did playing this mission and maybe enjoy it a little more. Maybe playing on Legendary wasn't the best choice for this style of video. You then fight through wave after wave of Covenant to finally find Captain Keyes locked in the ship's brig with 3 other Marine POWs. I don't know about you guys, but when I finally got to this point, I felt a huge sense of relief, because I finally had another character that was harder for the Covenant to kill. Don't get me wrong, the Covenant can and will kill Captain Keyes if you aren't careful though. Once you finally reach the hangar bays that you saw earlier, you and Captain Keyes, along with the other Marines, finally get out of Dodge and away from the Covenant for a minute or two. Now that you saved Captain Keyes from almost certain death, he sends you on another mission to find Halo's map room, named the Silent Cartographer, in what is probably the best mission in this entire game. You get to fight off hordes of Covenant troops while trying to find the map room adjacent to a beach, which in my opinion gives this level a real life vibe to it. The fact that you hot drop into a battle zone just gives you that real hero feel for a moment. I genuinely wish that Bungie had more missions in Halo CE with this type of gameplay style and feel to it. After fighting the Covenant on a beach for a bit, Foehammer comes in clutch once again with another Warthog to get to the next area faster. Yet again, not a fan of the newer Warthogs, but it's better than walking everywhere for sure. Once you reach the entry to the Silent Cartographer, you must once again fight through multiple difficult enemies just to die repeatedly after you walk past the hiding elite in the foyer like I did multiple times. Cortana urges you to get through the door before the elite locks it behind him, but no matter how hard you try, it won't work because the game wasn't designed that way. After going through more and more enemies, you're finally able to get to the Silent Cartographer with the help of our old pal Foehammer. Now, Assault on the Control Room has and always will be one of my least favorite missions in the entirety of the game. Going through the multiple gray hallways always just felt so mundane to me, and it genuinely was not good. Even back when I first played through the game, I didn't enjoy this mission. The larger areas of this mission were initially cool to me, mainly because you get to drive a Scorpion for the part of the mission. But after getting shot at from every single direction by everything the Covenant had on hand and dying every time, it became quite repetitive. The bridges were the bane of my existence for this level. Something about getting stuck with a plasma grenade every time you were trying to fight someone on your side of the bridge just put a really sour taste in my mouth. Now, 343 Guilty Spark is another mission that is really low on my tier list of favorites from this game. The anniversary graphics on this mission feel all wrong, and it seems like they gave a toddler control over the lighting for this map. Once you get inside, it feels like 343 put a little more thought into the map's lighting and overall assets. The blue blood from the Covenant on the walls and the floor looks a little more muted, almost like it had been there for a while and coagulated. Once you fight off some stragglers, you find Private Manuel Mendoza, who attacks you. Now, up until doing research for this video, I had no idea why he attacked Chief. I had no idea why he was just shooting at me, screaming nonsense. But I found out something pretty interesting. At this point, Private Mendoza was already infected by the Flood, and the infection form had begun to take control over his central nervous system, which is why he doesn't recognize the Master Chief and shoots at him with his Magnum. Now, the infection forms and combat forms of the Flood in this game look awful. It looks like a dog threw up spaghetti and the graphic designers took a picture of it for the model. I mean, they've always looked this way, even in the original version of Halo CE, so I can't really be mad at 343 for that. But after you get outside of the Flood containment facility once again and regroup with the Marines, you go back into the crappy lighting and fight off some more combat forms before finally meeting the namesake of this mission, 343 Guilty Spark. And he takes you to go and retrieve the index to fire the ring. And now we have arrived at another one of my least favorite missions from this game and the franchise as a whole, the Library. It's safe to say that I'm not a huge fan of the introduction that we got to the Flood. While I understand what Bungie was going for when introducing them, I don't understand why they made the combat and carrier forms so damn hard to beat on Legendary. I died in this mission more than I died in the entire game, including the firefights with the Hunters. The Flood really is all-encompassing during this mission, and it really makes the mission feel like a hopeless fight. Back again to all these damn gray hallways and bridges, but this time with a twist. This time you get to fight literally every enemy in the franchise at this point. Not only do you fight the Covenant, but you also get to fight the Sentinels and the Flood all at the same time. I'm not saying that I hate this mission, but this mission is garbage. Reduced, reused, and recycled garbage. While playing through this mission, I had the hardest time not getting absolutely demolished by every enemy type. Overall, the plotline is great, but the execution and the planning of the mission was just a total waste of time in my eyes. Now, Keys is the mission where it finally starts to get interesting again. Not a bad choice for Bungie to reuse the Covenant carrier, but in a destroyed form. Playing through this mission was very nostalgic for me, and I can say it was one of my favorites throughout the entire trilogy. Between fighting the Covenant and fighting off the Flood, it gave you a real challenge that didn't feel too busy like 2 Betrayals did. I thoroughly enjoyed the combat balance in this mission, and it felt like it was a fun time to play through again. Once you get back onto the carrier after falling into the pool of green coolant leaking from the engines, it really seems like the Covenant has had a tough time fighting the Flood, based solely off the number of dead grunts and elites. Let me tell you though, this mission was not for the faint-hearted. The teams that the Covenant sent in to salvage the ship were extremely hard to beat, especially when they threw plasma grenades at every opportunity in the corridor. I was extremely disappointed that Captain Keyes was assimilated into the Proto-Grave Mine, because I felt like he could have given the series so much more than Bungie allowed him to. After a little searching, I was able to find the terminal that gave us a little preview of what it was like for him to be assimilated, which I thought 343 executed excellently. Another thing I thought was cool in this mission was the fact that you could skip the entire firefight in the hangar bays simply by jumping down onto one of the Banshees and spamming the board button. That little trick saved me a good amount of headache. Ah man, it's good to be home. Or is it? After Chief almost yeets himself off the face of Installation 04 by being the universe's worst pilot for a moment, you finally return to where it all started, the Pillar of Autumn. And surprise, surprise, the Flood, Covenant, and Sentinels are here to delay your mission. Finally, after a good amount of fighting, the bridge is in our sights. If you're not careful in this area though, you'll get absolutely pummeled by the grunts with the fuel rod guns that, for some reason, explode when the grunts die. Some more monologuing from our favorite AI companion. Wait, Cortana said lifeboat? I thought they were all used when we escaped here the first time. After a brief cameo from our friend 343 Guilty Spark, we must go back through that same gray color scheme that is everywhere in this game for some reason, to finally get to engineering where, unsurprisingly, engines are. Hell yeah, parkour time! Now this part was both fun and frustrating at the same time. Between the Sentinels and the Flood trying to kill you, and trying to get the right angle to hop onto the barrels and then onto the ventilation shafts for the engines, it became very frustrating very quickly. After successfully causing the engine to go into a meltdown, you get to do my favorite part of the entire franchise, which was included in Halo Combat Evolved and Halo 3, the Warthog run. So, I didn't know that there was an achievement for it, but apparently if you manage to keep the Warthog upright and don't flip it once, you get an achievement from Steam for being a good driver and not blowing yourself up, which, pretty cool. The last on-foot run to get to the Saber felt just as great as it did the first time I played Halo Combat Evolved, and it felt great after playing this game for 8 hours to get usable footage for a YouTube video to finally be done. Now, for some reason, when I played through, even though I played the entire game on Legendary, it didn't give me the legendary ending, if I could talk today. Didn't give me the legendary ending where you see Johnson and the Arbiter hugging it out as the Pillar of Autumn's fusion reactor explodes. But I'm not mad because I've seen it on YouTube. It's not a big deal. You could look it up yourself. So I wanted to take a moment and thank everyone that made it to the end of this video without clicking away because I was too boring for your taste. It's because of you guys that I can do these videos and justify spending more money on PC parts, recording software, and recording equipment to be able to do what I love. If you guys like this video and you want to see more like it, Let me know in the comments below or subscribe and like the video. This was a good amount of work to put it together, and I don't want to spend time making videos y'all don't like when I could be churning out content that you guys will like. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.